The sound of tires on wet pavement filled the silence between us. My grandson, Evan, kept both hands tight on the steering wheel, his eyes locked on the dark road ahead. I clutched my purse in my lap, my phone buzzing inside it again and again. "Don't answer it, Grandma," he said, his voice low but steady. I looked down at the glowing screen. "Daniel, my son, that's your father calling," I whispered. "He'll be worried." Evan shook his head. "Please, just trust me. We can't go back. Not tonight." The words didn't make sense. My house was behind us, the one Henry, my late husband, had built with his own hands 40 years ago. Every board, every nail, every window frame still held his touch. It was the only place that ever felt like home. But now my grandson was driving me away from it like we were escaping something. Outside, the rain came harder, streaking the windshield with silver lines. The dashboard light washed Evan's face pale. He wasn't a boy anymore. He looked so much like Henry when he was young, steady, calm, but his jaw was tight with something I'd never seen before. Fear. I wanted to ask again what was happening, but the look in his eyes stopped me. Whatever it was, he was protecting me from it. My phone buzzed one last time before the call went silent. Evan reached over and turned it off completely. "Grandma," he said quietly, "I need you to promise me something. Whatever happens next, don't go back to that house. Not until I tell you it's safe." The air in the car felt heavy, too still. I stared out the window as the lights of my neighborhood disappeared behind us, swallowed by the rain. "My name is Joan Miller. I'm 68 years old, and tonight my grandson saved my life. Let me tell you how everything started." The mornings had become the hardest part of my day. Each time I opened my eyes, the room seemed to tilt slightly, as if I were waking up on a rocking boat. My head throbbed, my stomach rolled, and the taste of metal lingered on my tongue. I told myself it was age or maybe stress. People at 68 weren't supposed to feel young anymore. The doctor said the same thing after the blood tests. "You're fine, Mrs. Miller. Probably just fatigue or a touch of vertigo." He smiled kindly, wrote me a prescription for nausea, and sent me home. Home. The house Henry built 40 years ago stood at the edge of Maple Ridge. He laid every brick himself, carved the stair rail, polished the oak floors until they shone like honey. After he died 4 years ago, I kept everything exactly as he left it. His mug still sat on the shelf. His tools stayed in the basement, neatly lined up in the red toolbox with his initials engraved on the lid. Sometimes when the light came through the kitchen window just right, I could almost see him, his big hands sanding a piece of wood, humming the same old country tune. But those mornings had changed. The smell of coffee made me nauseous. My favorite meals tasted bitter. Even walking from the bedroom to the kitchen left me lightheaded. A week before everything happened, my grandson Evan stopped by after work. He was covered in sawdust, still wearing his tool belt. "Grandma, you've lost weight," he said, worry creasing his brow. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just a little tired lately." He frowned. "You look pale." He glanced around the house like he was searching for something. His eyes paused on the cracks above my bedroom window. "I think the foundation's settling," I said. "Your dad patched a few things up for me a while back." Evan's expression changed slightly, though I didn't notice it then. He just nodded. Before he left, he promised to come back on Saturday to check those cracks. I remember waving goodbye from the porch, the same porch Henry had built for me when I was pregnant with Daniel. Back then, it was a home filled with laughter, dinners, and stories. Now, it was just me, the ticking of the kitchen clock, and the sound of my own breathing echoing through empty rooms. Saturday came with gray skies and the smell of rain. Evan arrived early, toolbox in hand, a look of quiet determination on his face. He walked through the house slowly, running his fingers along the door frames, tapping the walls as if listening for something beneath the surface. I followed behind him, unsure why my chest felt tight. "In here," I said, pointing to the cracks above the window. "They showed up a few months ago." Evan stepped closer, studying them. "Fresh paint," he murmured. "When did you last repaint this wall?" I frowned. "Your father did. 3 months ago, maybe 4, said it needed sealing before winter." Evan's expression stiffened. He reached for his flashlight and crouched near the heating vent. His thumb brushed the edge of the metal. "Did he paint over this too?" "Yes," I said slowly. "He said it was just cosmetic." He didn't answer. Instead, he took a small screwdriver from his belt, loosened 2 screws, and lifted the vent cover. Behind it, I saw a strange patch of plaster. The vent was completely sealed shut. "That's odd," I whispered. "He told me he sealed the old vents to make the house more efficient. No drafts." Evan didn't respond right away. He reached up and pressed the test button on the carbon monoxide detector above the doorway. It beeped once, a hollow sound. He pulled it down from the ceiling, flipped it over, and went silent. "Grandma," he said finally, showing me the back. The battery had been soldered into place. "This detector doesn't work. Someone modified it so it can't sense anything." I felt something cold run through me. "Your father tested it," I said weakly. "I heard it beep." Evan nodded grimly. "It can beep without detecting." He stared at the wall again, running his hand along the newly painted surface. Then he took a knife from the toolbox and carefully scored a small square of drywall. The sound of the blade scraping the plaster filled the room. He pried the section open just enough to reveal what was hidden behind it. A second metal vent. The original one Henry installed decades ago, completely blocked off with insulation and sealed. Evan's shoulders tensed. He turned to me, eyes dark. "Grandma, something's very wrong here." For the first time in months, my dizziness wasn't from illness, it was from fear. Evan stood there for a long moment, staring at the sealed vent as if it were something alive. Then, without a word, he picked up his toolbox and headed toward the basement door. "Evan, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I need to check something," he said. "Stay here." The wooden steps creaked under his boots as he descended. The house fell quiet except for the faint hum of the furnace. I waited at the top of the stairs, my palms sweating, heart thudding in my chest. Minutes passed, 5, 10, maybe more. Then came the sound of metal clinking, a flashlight beam flickering against the walls, and finally his voice. "Grandma, come down here. You need to see this." I gripped the rail and made my way down carefully, the air growing colder with each step. Evan was crouched near the far wall beside the furnace. He pointed his light toward a line of silver piping that disappeared beneath the floorboards. "This isn't part of your heating system," he said quietly. "Someone added it." I bent closer. A small electronic device, about the size of a lunchbox, was attached to the pipe. Wires ran from it into a timer switch mounted behind the furnace. "What is it?" I asked. He took a slow breath. "A timer-controlled gas line. It's set up to release carbon monoxide whenever the heat turns on at night." For a second, I couldn't understand the words. Then they hit me all at once. "Evan, that's impossible. Your father, he fixed the system. He was just trying to help." Evan looked at me, and for the first time in his life, he looked older than his years. "He's a mechanical engineer, Grandma. He knows exactly what this setup is do." I backed away, shaking my head. No, Daniel would never." He put a hand on my shoulder. "I wish I was wrong, but this took planning, tools, knowledge. Someone built this carefully, someone who wanted you to die slowly." My throat closed. The basement walls seemed to close in, too. Evan's next words came out firm, decisive. "Pack a bag. We're leaving this house right now. Don't call anyone, and don't look back." That was the moment I finally understood my own son had turned the home his father built into a weapon. We drove through the rain until the town lights faded behind us. Evan didn't speak until he saw a roadside diner glowing in the distance. He pulled into the empty lot, parked, and took a deep breath before turning to me. "Grandma," he said quietly, "we need to talk about why he might have done this." Inside, the diner smelled like coffee and bacon grease. A waitress poured us 2 cups and left us alone in the corner booth. Evan took out his phone and showed me a news article. "Dad's company, Apex Dynamics," he said, tapping the headline. "They laid off half their senior engineers last month." I frowned. Daniel never said a word. "He wouldn't," Evan replied. "He's been drowning in debt for years. The house, the cars, the private school for the twins, it's all falling apart." I felt the room spin slightly, though this time it wasn't from illness. "Grandma, your house is worth almost $900,000 now," he continued. "You own it outright. No mortgage. If you were gone, everything would be split between Dad and Aunt Laura." I stared at him, my coffee untouched. "You think he would just for money?" Evan hesitated, then nodded. "I wish I didn't. But I've seen the way he talks about finances. And Aunt Laura's been struggling too. Paul's medical treatments cost thousands every month." I pressed my hands together. "She works in insurance. She'd know how to make something like this look natural." "Exactly," Evan said. If you died in your sleep from carbon monoxide, no one would question it. They'd sell the house, pay their debts, and move on. The words tore through me. I had spent my life working, saving, building a home Henry would be proud of, and now the people I loved most saw it as nothing more than a dollar sign. I whispered. Henry warned me once. He said Daniel was too proud to ask for help. Evan nodded slowly. Grandpa was right. I reached across the table and took Evan's hand. You saved me, didn't you? He looked away, his jaw tight. I just saw something that didn't feel right. Grandpa taught me to notice the small things. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. I thought about Henry's steady hands, the same hands that had built the house Daniel turned into a trap. My son used his education to destroy what his father built, I said softly. But you used his father's lessons to save me. The next night, Evan checked us into a small roadside motel 20 miles out of town, the kind of place where nobody asked questions. The sign outside flickered, half the neon letters dead. We carried one small suitcase between us. Evan paid cash and asked for a room on the second floor, away from the main parking lot. Inside, the air smelled faintly of bleach and old carpet. Evan set his phone on the nightstand, opened the curtains just enough to see the lot below, and said, "We'll stay here until I figure out what to do next." I tried to rest, but every creak in the hallway made my chest tighten. The thought of my son, my own flesh and blood, trying to kill me sat like a weight in my stomach. Around midnight, my phone started buzzing again. Daniel. Then Rachel. Then Laura. Call after call. Don't answer, Evan warned. The phone rang 5, 6 times, then stopped. A few minutes later came a soft knock at the door. "Grandma," Evan whispered, stepping toward the peephole. He froze. "It's them." My breath caught. How did they find us? "They must have called every motel in the area," he said. The knocking grew louder. "Mom," Daniel's voice called from the other side, too calm. "I know you're in there. Open the door. We just need to talk." Evan pulled out his phone and dialed. 911, he said quietly. "My name's Evan Miller. We're at the Maplewood Inn, room 214. My father is outside the door. He's trying to hurt my grandmother." He left the line open, slipped the phone into his pocket, and motioned for me to stay quiet. The knocking turned into pounding. "Mom, open this door right now. You're sick. Evan's filling your head with nonsense." Evan pointed toward the bathroom. "Back door," he mouthed. We slipped through the narrow hallway that led to an emergency exit. The metal door screeched as we pushed it open, and cold night air hit my face. We ran down the back stairs into the alley. But we weren't alone. Laura stood at one end of the alley, Rachel at the other. Daniel came around the corner, his eyes hard, his voice eerily calm. "Mom, stop running. You're confused. You've been breathing bad air for months. It's made you paranoid." Evan stepped in front of me. "I found the timer, Dad. The sealed vents, the dead detector. I've got photos, videos, everything." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You don't understand. We're drowning, Evan. I spent my life building for this family. Your grandmother has a house worth nearly $1 million, and she doesn't even use half of it. She could have helped, but she didn't." Rachel's voice broke behind him. "You've lived your life, Joan. We just needed a chance to live ours." I felt my knees go weak. By killing me? Laura stepped forward, a small syringe glinting in her hand. It was supposed to be peaceful. You'd fall asleep, no pain. Evan's hand tightened around his phone. "The police are already listening," he said. "They heard everything." Sirens wailed in the distance. Red and blue lights spilled into the alley. Daniel froze, his face draining of color. Laura dropped the syringe. Officers poured in from both ends, guns raised. "Police, hands in the air." Evan's voice trembled but stayed steady. "That's them, officers. They were going to kill her." And just like that, it was over. The police separated us under the glow of the flashing lights. I stood pressed against the brick wall, my hands shaking, the sound of radios crackling all around. Evan stayed close, his arm firm around my shoulders as officers led Daniel, Rachel, and Laura toward 3 separate cars. Daniel didn't resist. He just stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, eyes hollow. Rachel sobbed uncontrollably, while Laura kept whispering, "I'm sorry, Mom," over and over until her voice broke. A detective with silver hair and tired eyes approached me. "Mrs. Miller," she asked gently. "I'm Detective Collins. Your grandson did the right thing calling us. We have everything recorded, the threats, the confession, all of it. I nodded, unable to speak. At the station we gave our statements. Evan showed them the photos, the sealed vents, the timer device, the broken detector. Forensics teams searched my house that night. The next morning Detective Collins called. "We found everything your grandson described," she said. "The modified gas line, the timer system, soldered detectors. And Mrs. Miller, there's more." She paused before continuing. "On your son's computer we found a folder labeled Exposure Plan. It contains calculations for carbon monoxide dosage, duration, even notes about your sleep schedule. He documented everything like an engineering project." My stomach turned. "There were also text messages between Rachel and Laura," she added. "The house is almost worth $900,000 now," one of them wrote. "Once she's gone, we can finally breathe." A few weeks later, the trial began, but with the recordings, photos, and documents, there was little left to argue. Daniel accepted a plea deal, 15 years in prison. Rachel got 12, Laura 10. When the judge asked if I wanted to give a statement, I stood. My voice was quiet but clear. "My husband built that house to protect us," I said. "My children turned it into a weapon. But my grandson used the same lessons his grandfather taught him to protect life, not destroy it. That is the legacy worth keeping." The courtroom fell silent, and for the first time in months, I finally breathed without fear. 6 months later, I sold the house. The market had gone up again, and a young couple with 2 little girls bought it. They stood on the porch Henry built and talked about painting the kitchen yellow, planting a garden, maybe even putting a swing in the backyard. I didn't tell them what had happened there. I only hoped the house would feel like a home again, full of laughter, not secrets. Evan handled the paperwork. He was calm, patient, and respectful through it all. Before closing day, he went back to the house alone and removed the kitchen cabinets his grandfather had built decades ago. The oak was still flawless, the joints still tight, the varnish catching the light just the way Henry had left it. He brought them to my new apartment across town, a small 1-bedroom with a balcony overlooking the park. It wasn't much, but it felt safe. Evan spent the weekend installing those cabinets in my new kitchen, humming the same tune Henry used to hum while he worked. When he finished, I stood beside him, running my fingers along the smooth wood. "Your grandfather's hands built these," I said softly. Evan smiled, "And yours kept them shining." That night we had dinner together, pasta, salad, and a small bottle of wine. It wasn't fancy, but it was peaceful. Evan told me about his new projects, home renovations, custom decks, a small woodworking business he was starting. He said he wanted to build things that lasted. "That's what Grandpa always said," he told me. "If you do it right, it'll outlive you." When he left, I stayed in the kitchen a while longer. The evening light filtered through the window, turning the oak golden. I could almost hear Henry's laugh, see his broad shoulders bent over his workbench, the smell of sawdust in the air. I whispered, "You protected me even after you were gone." Because in a way he had, through the grandson who carried his hands, his patience, and his heart. If you've ever been betrayed by your own blood, remember this: love built with integrity never dies. It passes on to those who still know right from wrong. So tell me, if you were in my place, could you ever forgive them? Like, share, and let me know in the comments. I'll be here listening.